Hey everybody, it's Joe from Gadgetry Tech, and in today's video we're going to talk about the Hifiman Arya Organic. Now I have the Stealth, I have the HE1000 SE, and a few other planars in a similar price range, so I'll do some comparisons after. But this is a new-ish headphone from Hifiman. I've actually had this for several months now, but between being sick a lot and traveling and all these things that kind of came up unexpected, it delayed the video, so I'm really sorry it took this long, and to Hifiman for taking this long as well. This was sent to me for review. It won't affect what I say about it because, with all my videos, I'm very honest and open. I will say what I like and dislike and where I think it's a right fit. Now, there's a few important things to take away from this. One is the specs have changed a little bit, as has the price. Now, I have the Arya Stealth, and I mentioned I'll be talking about this more after. When this came out, and it's backwards on my stand, when this came out, it was $1,600. And that was pretty much going toe-to-toe with the HD 800S from Sennheiser. Then they came out with a new version, which have some upgrades, and I'll show the close-ups, but this is now $1,300. So price drop helps a lot because now it's more in the pricing scheme against the LCD-X from Odyssey, in my opinion. And the other big thing to take away here is it's 16 ohm and 94 decibel sensitivity rating. 16 ohm with 94 dB is pretty easy to drive. It actually gets quite loud, and when I compared it to my Arya Stealth, I had to turn the volume down when I was A-Bing. So basically this one was always louder at the same volume setting compared to the Stealth and a couple other headphones. So it's easy to drive, but being a big planar also responds well to high current. Now I have an amplifier. I'll just grab it now while I'm on this note. The Niche Pietus Maximus. Little dusty. I've been using this amp almost exclusively since I reviewed it. I absolutely love this amp. This configuration is about, I believe, $650-ish. And that's using the Shit Audio ESS Unison DAC. So it's an integrated USB-C DAC and then this just incredible amp. So I like this one because it has really good punch and dynamics to it. And it's very, very clean. It's not like a fake tubey sound or a real tube sound. It's just a nice, good bass line, and I used this amp for all of my headphone comparisons when I was A-Bing the two. Now I want to talk about the unboxing experience, and I have the older Stealth box as well. People are going to like this, and people are going to dislike this. There's really no way to please everybody because a lot of people are more eco-conscious now, and they want packaging that's I guess less of a negative impact on the environment. So Hifiman's new products are all pretty much using these cardboard boxes, these undyed, unbleached boxes with styrofoam padding, as you can see. Now what's really cool is the inner padding turns into a headphone stand. Is this the kind of headphone stand you want for a $1,300 headphone? Maybe, maybe not. Maybe you don't care. But it certainly does its job, and you can't like stick the wire anywhere. But the other thing I want to call out is if you are using this as a headphone stand, you can see the dust. I've never used it. Put some little felt feet or silicone feet on the corners. It'll make it much more stable. This is fine for like a carpeted type material, but if you put this on a hard desk, it just spins and slides everywhere. It's not that stable. So put a little feet on it. Now comes a little cardboard box with a cable. It's this cable here. It is a 6.35 millimeter crystalline copper cable with the dual 3.5N because this is terminated with dual 3.5, as is pretty much every Hifiman headphone I've ever covered. So the cable's pretty basic. It's a little stiff. The microphonics are okay, but because of the design with the Arya in general, how they put these ports slightly forward, it angles the cable forward, microphonics really hasn't been an issue. So the build quality and comfort. Now all of my Hifiman products still work fine. I've had a couple where the ports are a little different. You know, one is a little bit loose, but for the most part they've held up well, and they use pretty premium materials. There's actually a nice little change they did. So you would think that because the price went down, certain areas might have gotten cheaper, especially with inflation. But this part of the Arya Organic is metal now. This is all metal, whereas the old one was plastic. This whole piece here is plastic, which on a $1,600 headphone, $1,600 headphone, it's not the end of the world. A lot of other companies use plastic to keep the weight down. It just depends on how you use it. But this has this gorgeous red wood to it. I think the red and black actually really work well together. In the past, when I used to stream with big headphones like this, I've actually used the Arya more than my HE1000 SE, only because I thought it looked better on camera being all black. The silver is kind of like a signature look, and I'll talk about this more later. The HE1000 SE is excellent. It has a real leather strap. But these synthetic straps, I actually like a little bit more because there's a little bit of pad to it. It actually feels a little bit more comfortable. You still have the spring steel headband. This is full rotation. There's no wire in the yoke, so that can spin indefinitely. But there's a lot of metal here. Now, the ear pad openings are huge. Like, you have this giant eggshell shape, I guess, or egg shape. And it's very deep. Comfort's really never been an issue for me for any of the Hifiman products. Now, and I don't wear hats when I do my audio listening, but the only downside to this shape and size is depending on your head shape, you may break a seal right here. Mine slightly does unless I lift it and I lower these straps more to keep the headphone a little bit higher. But for the most part, because of how this headphone sounds, I haven't really lost any, bass performance, at least to my liking. It wasn't really noticeable, and that's just because of how this delivers bass. We'll talk about sound more. These sliders. Now, you can see maybe the camera's getting it. There's a couple little streaks and lines on the headband. This particular design eventually does do a little bit of a groove, kind of like right here. So as you slide it up and down, that will wear a little bit over time, but it's pretty minimal. Now, the stiffness of this, to me, is perfect. Normally, I wouldn't say that because who defines what perfect is for resistance? However, it's perfect because I have two Hifiman products that are either too stiff or too weak. Now this one, I have to push significantly harder to get it to slide. It's almost too much. To me, it was too much, especially when you compare it to my Hifiman HE1000 SE, which is very smooth. And I think one side was looser than the other. These are actually pretty consistent. I have an Odyssey headphone where it's more asymmetrical. Now the other thing is the terminal stiffness. This is the whole build quality thing, because these things have been an issue for me with some Hifiman products in the past, is how secure the friction is on these terminals. Get a really nice solid click. The same. Another big thing. Now on my HE1000 SE, my most expensive one, I have one of them, it just kind of falls in and out. It's very, very easy to insert. So I'm also, I know I can take this apart, but that one is more firm than this side. So I don't know if it's just luck or QA has been improving, but my particular Arya Organic just seems to be dialed in really well. Now, as far as adjustment goes, again, I already mentioned how you slide this up and down. That's all you have to do for your head shape. And then just position this so it feels like it sits right on your ear. And again, the cords are going to come forward. Because it's a large pad with that kind of hybrid fabric material, you have this leather on the inside and then a sport fabric on what touches your skin. Very breathable. You can wear this for a long period of time without worrying about your ears overheating. It's one of my more preferred endurance headphones that doesn't go into something less expensive that's really, really light and open, like an all cloth pad, for example. So I can wear this for a long time. I think the clamp force is great. It's not too clampy. It's less clamp than the LCD X from Odyssey. So this is a little bit easier for me to wear as well. So we're going to talk about sound quality. Most of the review will be focused on that. And I want to start with the objective measurements first because it takes my opinion out of it. The Arya Organic is an interesting sound curve because when I saw the word organic, I was thinking maybe it'd be a little bit smoother, a little bit warmer. That's just what that word means to me. I feel like they could have called it the Arya Air just because the treble is definitely emphasized compared to the Arya Stealth. Most people that know about the Arya Stealth, I don't think there are many out there that are saying, this is great, but I wish it had more treble because it was already pretty emphasized in light. It's more or less the planar magnetic version of the Sennheiser HD800S for people who are looking for a really wide soundstage, but with the Arya Stealth in the past, having better bass extension, deeper, faster bass than what you get with the 800S from Sennheiser. So they lifted the treble, as you can see. Now, what's interesting, though, is the bass isn't really a bass shelf, but it does come across more bass forward than the older Arya Stealth. And that's because of the emphasis that goes from 20 or below 20 hertz all the way up to about 200 hertz. Then it dips, which takes the vocals down, the lower octave vocals down just a little bit. but then it's filled in much better to me in the 1 to 3 kilohertz range. Vocals are more forward. Guitars have a little bit more body to them than the older Arya Stealth. So purely from a measurement standpoint, there are some things that are excellent. In fact, it's one of the better sound signatures from Hifiman that I've covered in a while, provided that the high treble extension isn't an issue for you, because it is to an extent for me. Focusing more on the bass first, however, there's a lot to like about the Arya Organic, because the Arya and larger Hifiman products in general have always had pretty nice bass, provided you like planar bass. Some people like dynamic drivers for their bass delivery, whether it be 4 dynamics or just the punchy, smooth nature of it. Planars tend to have their own timbre, and which is going to affect how certain notes are produced. A lot of that has to do with attack and decay because of how fast a nanometer thick driver can move. It can produce notes very, very quickly, but it also means it can stop producing that note just as fast when it's not being asked to. So that's an important thing to consider, because you might be used to dynamic drivers, and this is going to be a totally different experience for you, which could be a good thing. So the bass texture and depth is really nice. I actually really like the Arya Organic more so than the original Stealth. When you compare it to something like the LCD-X or the HE1000 SE, the HE1000 SE is a little bit tougher to compare because of the way it images. It kind of throws you off a little bit on the bass. But this is the warmer sounding headphone of these, only because it's recessing vocals a little bit. The bass is just a little bit more forward. It's not a warm headphone, but the bass is a little bit more forward. The LCD-X has a flatter bass delivery, slightly less depth, under 20 hertz, 30 hertz area. However, because this is a darker, smoother sounding headphone, out of the box, some people might find that this is a more warm, bass heavy headphone, simply because it's darker in the upper frequencies. I do like the bass delivery. I don't think it's as dynamic as a Focal headphone, for example. Dynamics aren't really improved over the older Arya Stealth. They've just been okay, but they're still punchy and fast enough for rock music, at least with some mild EQ, to still enjoy. Then the big benefit is when you have those long, deep notes, whether it be rap, EDM, jazz, something that has a longer dig, these are going to do an exceptional job there. Now, transitioning into the mids, there's a lot to like here too. It is a little bit recessed in the lower frequencies, so deeper vocals seem to still sound good, but have a step back slightly in the mix compared to the Arya Stealth, which is only a byproduct of the bass being a little bit softer compared to that mid-range. Now, when you look at something like the LCD-X has a more cozy, comfortable, subtle sound with vocal deliveries, and it takes to EQ well. I really like the way this is like more of an easy listening headphone for me. However, the mid-range detail retrieval that you get on this, and it's so much improved over the Arya Stealth that, to me, that's the most noticeable gain that you get. I feel like the higher frequencies in the mids, like the 1 to 3 kilohertz area, just sound excellent. Vocals are much more present and clear. That also helps with string instruments. It helps with guitars. Everything sounds better to me, and it approaches a more natural tonality to what I expect my music to do. So then we get into the treble, and this is my biggest issue with the Arya Organic, and it's more of a matter of preference, because if I had one single sound signature, I don't want that much extra emphasis on treble. Thankfully, I pretty much listen to these exclusively on my computer, and that's where a mild EQ tweak will do. So if those of you are interested in this headphone and like everything I have said or am about to say about this, but you want to tamper the treble a little bit, take a look at my little EQ I pulled on the right side of me. That's going to help give you an idea of what I typically like to listen to this with. Now, there are pros and cons to the higher treble extension. You do have a vast sense of space and airiness, of course. Things do ring out more. Metallic sounds seem to have more energy to them and zing. But again, the downside is I find the treble to be a little bit abrasive. I don't want to say necessarily as far as like grainy, but it is wince-worthy at high volumes. So that takes me to another thing, and I'm not sure if you're familiar with something called the Fletcher Munson curve, which is that our ears hear frequencies differently at different amplitudes or volume. On lower volumes, you typically want more of a V shape, emphasize bass, slightly recessed mids, and then emphasize treble. As you turn up the volume, you tend to bring or want to bring bass and treble down to more evenly align with the mid-range. Otherwise, it can be just too much. So with that being said, at lower to medium volumes, this extended treble can actually help preserve or bring in some extra detail at lower listening volumes if you feel like it's been lacking at the volume you listen to. Again, you can EQ a lot of this stuff, but I'm just trying to kind of paint a picture of where this could come in handy. At higher volumes with rock and metal and some acoustics, it was just a little too much for me without doing EQ. It's just not my cup of tea. Ironically enough, that's what I'm drinking to keep my voice from cracking so I can make it through this video. But there are some benefits. The other benefit is if you happen to have headphones and you like to add treble to your EQ on a lot of stuff you own, or if you're not sensitive to treble, maybe you're getting older or your ears don't work as well in the higher frequencies, this would be a more preferred sound signature for you because it's bringing some of that extra emphasis back to counter what you can hear elsewhere. Now, to me, the biggest standout benefit or pro advantage that the Arya Stealth has in this price range over pretty much all of the competition is the technicalities, the delivery of subtle details, macro dynamics, microdynamics, all the ability to layer complex instruments or tracks together. It is just so profoundly clear and resolving. This is a great headphone. The LCDX has been my favorite headphone at $1,200 because I can EQ it. I can wear it for a long time, even though this thing is definitely heavy and more clampy, but it makes the LCDX sound less resolving. It makes this sound more dampened. That's not even comparing to other headphones that are less resolving than this. A dynamic that has a lot of dampening material to smooth out the sound signature will sound even duller. This is just another level. It's like lifting a veil and all of your stuff sounds more direct. You're more directly connected to the music. Now that too has pros and cons because if you have an excellent source and the sound signature agrees with you, this is an incredibly rewarding experience. It's just such a transformative listen. But if you listen to a lower quality recording, some of the tracks on Spotify where you can hear all that compression, this is not going to hide an ounce of that. You hear everything. And sometimes less resolving, better dampened products or more dampened products tend to mask some of the deficiencies in some of what you listen to. So I feel like there's always a silver lining with certain characteristics and some things will make it better, but you have to have a realistic expectation on what that actually means for your everyday music listening. Now the soundstage of the Arya Organic is great, which was to be expected because the Stealth has an even more vast sounding soundstage simply because of how other areas are recessed. It sounds thinner. Vocals on the Arya Stealth don't sound as intimate. It's almost like a slightly disjointed, more disconnected sound. It's a unique characteristic that makes the Arya Stealth special. However, for an everyday, if you only own one or two headphones, not several, to me this is a better balance of soundstage and imaging because it still preserves most of what I've liked about the Arya Stealth's vast soundstage, but there's a lot more intimacy and coherence in the mid-range vocals. It just seems like it's a better balance for general music listening. And the advantage to that, for those of you who watch my channel for gaming stuff, huge thank you for the support. I do a lot of mix of gaming and hi-fi, audiophile equipment, because there's an overlap. A lot of people have this and then, go home and play Halo or Call of Duty or racing game, whatever. This is like one of the best headphones. It might be the best headphone I own for gaming because, and I say headphone because there's no mic. So for the gamers out there, I'm not trying to get into compared to, the Maxwell, which is different. It has a different feature set. But I was talking about the technicalities and resolution and detail retrieval. That means you hear everything. Talk about a vast soundstage. The games sound open. The bass is fast and dynamic. So I get this immersive bass without losing the details. It's not getting sloppy or falling apart because an explosion's happening at the same time I'm trying to track an audio cue like a footstep or a loot crate. So this, seriously, if you're just looking for like a super high-end gaming headphone, this is the first one that I really feel fully goes against the HD 800S for gaming. Now I'm hoping to buy one of those this year. I can only buy so many headphones, and I'll do more direct comparisons down the road because I am going to keep this one. But I absolutely love this. And if you like the idea of the 800S, but you want a tighter, punchier bass with deeper bass extension because you listen to hip hop and EDM, you're missing that slam or that thickness to the low tracks that you want. The Arya Organic is going to give you that in spades. Now, to quickly compare why you would consider something like an HE1000 SE, which is $3,500, over double the price of this, the party trick with this is the soundstaging and imaging performance, which kind of gets into another dimension of this weird, I don't want to say holographic presentation because it's kind of like a buzzword, I guess, but you get audio cues in a way that most headphones don't deliver. It's a really special sound from an immersive sound point. It's also less offensive in a lot of areas for treble. So to me, it's a little bit easier to listen to, but there are some frequencies that frankly, I like the way this is tuned more. I like how guitars on the lower end frequencies, like a bass guitar, I like how it sounds more on this. And because there's that little dip into the 300 hertz area, 200, 300 hertz area, it makes some of the bass sound a little bit better too. It really comes down to preference, but I think the focus, because you can always EQ, the reason why you pay more for this is just the way it images and layers details. Again, just to summarize, the LCDX, it's an easier listen. If you're the type of person that likes to plug and not EQ anything, I feel like the LCDX is a safer bet. I just absolutely love listening to anything on the LCDX. I go to the Arya Organic, some stuff sounds better, for sure. Other stuff does not. It sounds worse. This is kind of like your happy middle. So, if you're open to EQ or you crave more treble energy and you feel like a lot of your stuff is lacking in that area, the Arya Organic is an easy recommend at this price range. I don't think it's going to be for everybody, but I love that when you get into this price range, you can have completely different behaviors and sound profiles that will, hopefully meet the needs of different people and what you're looking for. So I think that about wraps it up. If you like what you see, don't forget to like and subscribe. I'd love to see you at the next video. Thank you so much for watching this, and I'll see you next time.